All right, everyone. Good afternoon. If you're joining us via Teams, I do apologize for starting later than normal. What happened is I accidentally had another team that I did the meeting in, and I realized about 5 minutes in that no one's here. So I figured, well, I'm in the wrong team. So I got in the right team this time. Like I said, I really apologize for starting class late. I don't like to do that, but unfortunately, mistakes happen. So we're going to roll with it though. Basically, I'll just go ahead and say a little bit about exam 2. So for exam 2, again, like all the exams in here, it's open book, open note. You will see on the course homepage that we have the exam 2 terms. So certainly I recommend you download those, take a look at them now. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to go over. I'm certainly happy to do that at this time. But before we do that, I do want to mention the exam 2 supplement is posted as well. I certainly encourage all of you to go through this and at minimum familiarize yourself with it before the exam starts. I'm giving it to you in advance, so you can certainly feel free to do that. If you want to do this, you can. If you want to go ahead and build these tables out inside of MySQL Workbench. But I'm going to emphasize there's no requirement that you have to build these tables out inside of MySQL Workbench. That's not part of the assignment. But let's face it, if you could go ahead and run the queries as you're doing the exam, there will be 10 questions. And I would say around 6 to 8 of the questions, you're making queries. So you're based on this ERD rather. So certainly I'd encourage you to look through this, and if you have to make them, or if you choose to make them rather, feel free. That's certainly within the realm of the assignment, but you're not required to. So that's really all the upfront information. Like I say, 50 minutes, 10 questions. You shouldn't have an issue with time if you're confident, if you're able to make queries without any issues. Like I say, if you're struggling with 1 or 2 of them, you've got time to look into them. A good chunk of them, pretty basic. A few of them more advanced. But like I say, the majority you should be able to do without even really needing to check anything. So any questions? And here is the exam 2 terms. So I just added to the first file, and I just added an exam 2 worksheet. So here are all the terms you may need to know for the exam 2. So any questions at all? If anyone wants to see examples of these queries, I certainly recommend that you check back through the course files. The ones I posted where it has the solutions for chapters 3, 4, and 5. Those are certainly going to be applicable. There's not going to be a whole lot of stuff with recursive entities on here, or recursive relationships rather. To be honest with you, I don't even think a single question relates to them. So, but don't quote me on that. I could be mistaken, but I don't believe that any of the 10 questions deal with recursive relationships. So. I'm happy to answer any questions at all. Yeah. I don't believe that's going to be a question, but how would you explain the difference? So a strong entity is an entity that can stand by itself. It does not require information from another entity to exist, whereas a weak entity, I wouldn't say it is formed by information from another entity. That's a separate issue. But it does require information from another entity to fully exist. So that's the main difference there. All right, who's got another question? And if you're just joining us in the teams, like I said, I do apologize. I accidentally started the meeting inside the wrong team, so that was my bad. Any of these terms, if you have questions outside of these terms, I can also answer those as well. Anything you're wanting to know before we do the exam on Monday? And just to remind everyone, the exam will be available Monday from, I think, 12:01 a.m. or 12 a.m., I'm not sure which, till 11:59 p.m. on Monday, so you have just under 24 hours to do it. I certainly encourage you to do it during that time. If you don't, then you'll be given the opportunity to do an alternate assignment, which will almost certainly be less, it'll certainly be more work than exam one would otherwise be. Any questions about the content? Let's see, we've got a content. So Ben is asking to go over intersect. I'm certainly happy to do that. So when we have an intersection, we're saying that the condition is and. So if we have condition A, let's say condition A is that, let's just go to the actual exam. So here is the content that you'll see on the actual exam. This is a supplement that you'll use for it. So imagine we had a condition A where we said the salary for an employee is greater than $100,000. It's a random number I made up. And then we had another condition where we also want to return it if they work inside of the, let's just say, accounting department. So we want to figure out which accountants make more than $100,000. And with that information, we don't just want to know which employees make $100,000. We also don't just want to know which employees work inside the accounting department. We want to know both. So in traditional SQL, we can just use the intersect operator for that and condition. However, what's the problem with MySQL? Well, MySQL doesn't recognize the intersect operator. So to do that, you'd use and in and then do another subquery. So it's a little bit different inside of MySQL, but not terribly different. I believe chapter 5, we did an example of that. So certainly for the exact syntax, make sure you refer back to that. Okay, so let's see, I got a question. Can you go over which way to read the relationship between two things like salary and employee? Certainly happy to do that. So you'd read it as though salary has one and only one employee. So in other words, each record that we have inside the salary table belongs to one and only one employee. And if we want to get a good idea about that, we can look here, we can see that there is a foreign key for imp ID. Now we know that if there's a foreign key for an attribute, that it can only have a one-to-one relationship, basically, or it could also have 0 to 1, I suppose. But for the most part, it's going to be 1 to 1. Then we'd also read this employee has, in this case, one-to-many salaries. So I should probably change that to be 1 to 1 just so it's a little bit simpler. But what this is in its current form representing is it's saying that one employee can have multiple salaries. So what we're doing is we're not removing all the salaries. So if you get a raise, instead of actually removing that salary, we're going to have a date begin and a date end. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the current salary. But again, that's not something I'm going to have on the exam, so I'm going to make a note to update that. Any other questions?
Could you go over aliases?
Sure. So basically, you would use a table alias if you wanted to have a recursive relationship and you wanted to look at information that was present inside of the same table. So, you know, the book used the example of having the two table alii, where the first one is looking at the current monarch, and the second one is looking at the preceding monarch. So what they did is they got the attributes that they wanted, and then they just cast it using the as, and then from there, that forms a table alias. So whenever you do that, that's the approach you would take for a table alias. That's really about the only time you're going to use that. So, any other questions? In fact, I could probably find that in the book real quick. So, yeah, here it is in the book right here. So, just zoom in a little bit on this. Basically, all you have to do for the exact thing, you just cast it with as. So that allows you to select the information you want and just do it in that way. So any other questions? Sure. So a delete anomaly would be if I had a record, and let's say it's a database. The book used the example. They had that stock database. You remember that? And then inside the stock table, they had information about the countries. And if you deleted all the records that had information about, say, a country, you would lose information about the country. So that'd be an example of a delete anomaly, because when you delete the record about the stock, you're also losing information about the record itself. So you're losing that country information in that specific case. So you could avoid that by using a relational data model that doesn't have information. Basically, it's going to be you're not going to have information inside of an entity that doesn't directly relate to it. So instead of having it all inside of one big table, you'd split it up and you'd have information about the country. And if you no longer cared about the country, you could go ahead and delete it. But it's not going to be deleted because you removed all the instances of the stocks that that country has. So that's the first one. You asked about insert anomaly? Update anomaly. So an update anomaly would occur if you updated information inside of the database in some places, but not in other places. So imagine if you were doing something, say someone changed their name, and you only updated it inside their employee record, but you also referenced their name in other places. So that'd be where you'd have that update anomaly. So anytime you're updating information and you don't completely do it. All right, any other questions? So again, any of these terms, fair game for the exam. I think my best advice to everyone, just in general, make sure that you can write queries, basic queries. Go through the examples, particularly chapter 3, when I did all the examples for that. Chapter 4 as well. Chapter 5, when we start doing multiple joins in the same query, those are all very important. Because this is an open book, open note test, the only thing you're limited on is time. So if you put all those into a single file, and then maybe you're able to quickly scroll through, you organize it however best suits you, that could be very beneficial for you. That's certainly something you can do. I'm not saying you have to do it. The only thing I'm grading is your answers on the exam. So if you write the answers on the exam and you do it incorrectly, then that's not going to be a good thing. So that's kind of my advice I'll give in general. Just make sure you're looking over it very carefully. Pay attention to spelling. Pay attention to the order of the various operators that you have. So just as a reminder, of course, you start off with select, and you tell where it's from, and you do any join conditions you may have. You do on whatever the join condition is. Then you do where. If you want to do a group by condition, you do a group by condition. If you want to have anything having, you do the having in that case. And then lastly, you order by. So yeah, let me know if there's any other questions. If you guys don't have any questions, certainly feel free to go have a good weekend. I think we play Saturday, is that right? Yeah, so certainly, I'm not telling you to cheer on the dogs, but you know, if you want to cheer on the dogs, certainly hope you get an opportunity to do that. So have a good weekend. I'll stick around a couple minutes, see if anyone has any other questions. Yeah. It's either 12 o'clock a.m. or 12:01 a.m. You know, so I'm not sure the exact, but I should probably look and actually say the right information, shouldn't I? That's probably what everyone's thinking right now. So let me do that. So if we look over here at quizzes, 12 a.m. So October 5th, 12 a.m. So, and while I'm thinking about it, I'll go ahead and also add that to Unit 2. Other questions? So, it's on here, but you shouldn't be able to start it yet. Yeah, that looks right to everyone, doesn't it? I think that's what the schedule says in this syllabus, so. That's exactly right, so. Yeah. Any other last minute questions? Certainly happy to address anything at all. Do what? Do you have a question? Gotcha. Damien, you got a question? Justin? Derek? All right, guys. Well, I hope you all have a great weekend. Good luck on the exam. Like I said, just main thing is just remember to do it, and certainly submit it, and should be in a good spot. So have a good weekend, everybody.